Okay, today's daf we're going to be learning is Shabbat Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin. This week's learning is sponsored by Margie Zwiebel in honor of Howie Shochat, Chaim Tzvi Ben Yenta Bluma. He is in our tefillot. And today's daf is sponsored by the Mitchell family in honor of Rabbi Mitchell's birthday, Mazal Tov. We're now going to start at the top of Kuf Lamed Zayin. We ended with this issue of the androgynous, which has both male and female signs, genitalia, and we said basically that according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Tanakama, you can't do the Brit Milah on Shabbat because it's one of those cases of safek, which is doubt. Safek means we're not sure what it is. Is it this? Is it that? Right? Is it male or is it female? So it's a case of doubt, right? There could be all cases of doubts. We talked about Ben Hashmashot. We'll get to that later today. And then we said, though, that even though Rabbi Yehuda says you can do it androgynous Brit Milah on Shabbat, he doesn't hold across the board that androgynous is definitely male, just for the issue of Brit Milah or maybe others, but we're now going to start quoting a bunch of issues where he doesn't think that an androgynous is treated like a zachar. So the first we saw was erchin, which is when you do valuation of people. You say, I'm giving the value of a person to the temple. So we have no value for an androgynous because according to laws of valuation, it doesn't mean the person doesn't have a value. That's not what we mean. What we mean is that according to the Torah, it's male have particular value, female have another particular value. We talked about the differences yesterday. I'm not going to get back to that. But if you do the value of an androgynous, it doesn't fall into either category, and it's only if they're definite zachar or definite nekeva. Because it doesn't fall into any category, your statement is meaningless. Then we said that source, we can attribute it to Rabbi Yehuda because it comes from the Midrash Halakha called Safra. And we have a tradition that any Stam Safra, anything from the Midrash Halakha called Safra, which doesn't have a name attributed to it, we assume is Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're going to have another statement. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Af Ananami Tanina. We're going to see the same thing in a different case. Hakol Ksherim Lekadesh. Okay, what we're talking here is about creating the holy waters that they would sprinkle people after they became impure to a dead person, called the Para Aduma waters. It's called Mechatat. And how do you do it? You would mix ashes from the red heifer, the Para Aduma, with water, with special water. There's all these rules about what water it is. So in the mixing of that, they say, Hakol Ksherim Lekadesh Chutz Micheresh Shoteh V'Katan. Everyone can do this. Everyone is kasher to do this, other than someone who's deaf, someone who's a shoteh, doesn't have, his brain isn't working properly, or a katan. Okay, these are a young child, these are all minors, these are all considered people without proper da'at. Okay, when we talk about a cheresh and deaf, we're going to see that they talk about deaf and mute, and it's not exactly deaf people that we would say nowadays. We'll get more into it when we get into some of the sugyot where that becomes a central thing. This is just an aside, so we're not going to deal with it in depth. This is one of the things you have to learn. We're doing Daf Yomi. Sometimes we can get more in depth about things, sometimes not. Eventually, we'll kind of see everything and get to it. Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'katan u'posel b'isha. So Rabbi Yehuda says a katan is okay, but an isha ba'androgynous cannot. Okay, so he thinks a katan can mix the waters, but a woman or an androgynous can't. What do you see here? You see here the androgynous is not treated like a male. So it's another case, shma mina, so from here we can infer. So now they say, well, if he doesn't treat him as a vadai zachar when it comes to valuations, and he doesn't treat him as a for sure zachar when it comes to the mechatat, the paraduma waters, umay shna milah. So why by Brit Milah does he say we do the Brit Milah even it's on Shabbat? Mishum dichtiv, and you would have thought because of the stringency of Shabbat, we'd be all the more sore, so we wouldn't allow it. He says, Mishum dichtiv himol lachem kol zachar. You should give a Brit Milah, it says on the pasuk, to all males. All males seems to be an inclusive term, even those who are suffix about their males. It's not clear, there's doubt whether they're male or not. We're still going to say they get a Brit Milah on Shabbat. Okay, new Mishnah. We're going to read this Mishnah, and if you look at today's chart that I did, we're going to see there's three variations of this Mishnah, three ways of reading this Mishnah. It's not clear. There were three different traditions about what the wording of the Mishnah was. So we're going to read it with the wording that we have in front of us. Then we're going to say that Rav Huna had that version, and then we're going to bring two other versions of the Mishnah. Misha hayula shnei tinokot. Echad lamul achar haShabbat ve'echad lamul b'Shabbat. This is a classic Mishnah structure where we start to come up with these cases of two things, and one is like this and one is like that, and there's a bit of difference. This comes up in a whole bunch of cases. Somebody has in front of him two children. The assumption is he has two wives who each gave birth to two different children on a day different. Okay, they're with 1 day difference, and both are in front of him now to give a brit milah. Right, so they both need a brit milah potentially, but one of them needs it today and one of them doesn't need it today. And we're now on Shabbat, and we're supposed to do the brit milah to the one who has the shiur of brit milah on Shabbat. But of course, what's going to happen? The father confuses the two. It could be twins. There's a reason why it seems to be it's not twins. Okay. So misha yulo shnei tinokot echad lamul achar haShabbat ve'echad lamul b'Shabbat. Okay, so he has one that's supposed to be brit milah on Shabbat, and one whose brit milah is achar Shabbat, meaning Sunday. V'shachach umal et shel achar Shabbat b'Shabbat. It could be it's twins. I'm not exactly sure about the twins. There was some reason why I thought maybe it wasn't twins, and when they describe it, they give a different example. It doesn't seem like it's twins, but maybe it could be. Anyway, he has two in front of him, one whose brit milah is supposed to be on Sunday, and one whose brit milah is supposed to be on Shabbat. V'shachach umal shel achar Shabbat b'Shabbat. He makes the mistake and chooses the wrong baby to give the brit milah to. So he does the one whose brit milah was on Sunday, and he does it today. Chayav. Okay, everyone agrees here that you're obligated. Meaning, obligated what? Chayav chatat. Because what's this? A classic case of shogeg. You made a mistake, and instead of doing a brit milah, the baby was not yet 8 days old. So you couldn't do a brit milah on this baby, and you did it anyway. So basically, what did you do? You did a chabura. You made an injury into the baby on Shabbat, because it's considered an injury rather than brit milah, right? That's exactly the whole issue. If it's brit milah, we don't consider it, right? It overrides. Here you weren't obligated to do the brit milah, so you're obligated for transgressing Shabbat by accident. So therefore, you have to bring a korban chatat. Second case, echad lamul be'erev Shabbat ve'echad lamul b'Shabbat. What if one's brit milah was supposed to be Friday and one was supposed to be Shabbat? And what did you do? You didn't do the brit milah on Friday. So now both babies are in front of you on Shabbat. V'shachach umal shel erev Shabbat b'Shabbat. Now in this case, you actually performed a mitzvah because that baby is obligated in brit milah because you're on the 9th day, but he's still obligated in brit milah. Doesn't override Shabbat. So therefore, there's a debate. Are you obligated for transgressing Shabbat or not? So Rabbi Eliezer Mechayev Chatat, he says, I don't care that you performed a brit milah on this baby, mitzvah, no mitzvah. He wasn't obligated to do it on Shabbat, and therefore doesn't override Shabbat. So you're actually obligated. The Rabbi Yoshua Poter. Rabbi Yoshua says no. He was involved in a mitzvah, okay? And he holds, according to Rashi, the last line in Rashi in the Mishnah says, Ta'ah bidvar mitzvah v'asa mitzvah patur. You were dealing with a mitzvah. You did a mitzvah. You performed a mitzvah. You just performed it by accident on the wrong child, and you fulfilled the mitzvah. So since you fulfilled the mitzvah, well, you're patur from being obligated for Shabbat. So what he basically says is there's an exemption. It's almost like diplomatic immunity, right? There's an exemption for while you're doing the mitzvah. Okay, since in the first case, you were also trying to do a mitzvah, but there's a difference. You were trying to do a mitzvah. In the end, you didn't do a mitzvah. In this case, you were trying to do a mitzvah, and you actually did a mitzvah. You just did the wrong thing, and you did the mitzvah of something that weren't obligated today, and didn't override Shabbat. But because of that, we're going to exempt you from bringing the sacrifice. So that's the first version of the Mishnah. And the Gemara is going to tell us, Rav Huna matne chayav. Rav Huna's version is chayav, meaning, what's chayav? What he means is, on the case they both agree about, they agree that he's obligated. And Rav Yehuda matne patur. The first case we saw was, he has one whose brit milah is Sunday and one on Shabbat, and everybody agrees that since you didn't fulfill the mitzvah in doing this brit milah because he wasn't yet obligated when you took the Sunday baby and you did his brit milah today, everyone agrees you're going to be obligated. That's his version. But according to Rav Yehuda, he thinks that everyone agrees you're exempt. So he's going to have a different reading of the Mishnah, which we'll get to soon. Right now, we're just going to review what we just read because we're going to basically read Rav Huna's version, which matches exactly what we read. So I'm not going to explain too much because we already read it, but I'll explain it briefly. Rav Huna matnei chayav. How so? Titania. It says in the following Breita. And now we're going to bring Breitot that are more expanded versions of our Mishnah. And each Breita, we're going to have 3 different Breitot. Each one tells this case a little bit differently. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Lo nechleku Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Yoshua. We talked about this the other day, that sometimes there's later Tanaim, which everyone knows there was a debate between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yoshua. And the question is, what exactly was the debate? Right? They disagreed earlier. The other day we had it with Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. So we're going to have a machloket between Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and Rabbi Meir about what the machloket of the people in the previous generation was. So he says like this: Lo nechliku Rabbi Eliezer. It should be Eliezer, not Rabbi Elazar. It says Rabbi Elazar, but it should be Rabbi Eliezer. Lo nechliku Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yoshua al mi shayu lo shtei tinokot. Shnei tinokot echad lamul b'Shabbat, echad lamul achar Shabbat, v'shachachu malat shel achar Shabbat b'Shabbat shu chayav. They didn't disagree about that case. Everyone agreed that you're obligated if you had a Sunday baby and a Shabbat baby, and you took the Sunday baby, did the Brit Milah. I'm sorry, I said the reverse. And you took the Sunday baby, and you were supposed to do the Brit Milah only on Sunday, and you did it today on Shabbat. Everyone agrees that you're going to be obligated because you didn't fulfill a mitzvah. Alma nechleku, in which case do they disagree? One you were supposed to have done yesterday, on Friday, and the other you were supposed to do on Shabbat. And then you accidentally did the Friday baby on Shabbat, so you fulfilled a mitzvah. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't care. He says, no matter what, you have to bring a korban chatat for what you did, because you weren't allowed to do that on Shabbat. And Rabbi Yoshua exempts. Now we're going to have in this Breita, they give us an explanation for where they derive it from. They both learn it out from the same place, but again, they're going to come to different conclusions. What is that? From worshiping idols. Rabbi Eliezer savar ke'avodat kochavim. It's just like idol worship. Ma avodat kochavim amar rachmana lo ta'avid b'chi avid mechayev. Says very simply, don't worship idols. And if you worship idols, you're going to be obligated. It doesn't matter how you worship idols. Hachinami loshna. Likewise here, it says, don't transgress Shabbat. You transgress Shabbat, you're obligated. The Rabbi Yoshua says, but if we're going to learn it from Avodat Kochavim, let's learn it in a way that's similar to idol worship. Hatam de lav mitzvah. There, when you're obligated in idol worship, no matter how you do it, well, there's no way of doing idol worship while you're performing a mitzvah. There's no such thing. So therefore, that's lav mitzvah. You're not performing a mitzvah. But hacha mitzvah. But here, you're actually performing a mitzvah. Okay? So, since you're performing a mitzvah, because you're doing the Friday baby who was already obligating Brit Milah, and you're actually getting the mitzvah done. Therefore, while you're doing the mitzvah, you made a mistake. So, you performed a mitzvah anyway. We're going to basically say you're exempt from your korban chatat. That's the first version. That was just a repeat. With that, we got a little more description, which is, this is Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar's version of it. And we're learning that, right, Rav Huna is basically saying that this is Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Tana's opinion. And we're learning what their source of disagreement is, where they learn it from. Rav Yehuda Matnei Patur, he had a version that said that you're going to be exempt they all agree in a particular case that you're exempt. Now, what's the obvious logic going to be? They're going to swap the cases now. They're going to agree that you're exempt in which case? In the case where you performed a mitzvah. We're going to now say that Rabbi Eliezer thinks if you actually performed the mitzvah, which is you took the baby that was on Friday and you gave him the Brit Milah on Shabbat, since you made a mistake within the performance of a mitzvah, Rabbi Eliezer will say you're exempt. We're basically just moving everything a notch, right? We're going to basically say in that case, everyone agrees you're patur, and the machloket is going to be in the opposite case. There, we're going to have a machloket. So let's read it. Ditanya. Amal Rabbi Meir. So here comes Rabbi Meir to disagree with Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Lo nechleku Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbi Yoshua al mi shayu lo shnei tinokot. Echad lamul be'erev Shabbat ve'echad lamul b'Shabbat. Okay, again, what case do they not disagree about? If there was a Friday baby involved here. V'shachachu malat shel erev Shabbat shu patur. They all agree that if you did the Friday baby on Shabbat, since you performed a mitzvah, and even though you made a mistake and you did it on Shabbat when you shouldn't have, since you performed the mitzvah, it's all good, you're exempt. Alma nechleku, and that is again, Doesn't mean you can do this. It just means if you did it, you don't have to bring a sacrifice. So what's the machloket about? One whose brit was supposed to be Sunday, which means he's less than 8 days old, which means that you didn't perform a mitzvah when you did his brit milah, because you did it before the time. And one you were supposed to do on Shabbat. Okay, now, originally we said everyone agrees you're obligated in this case because you didn't perform a mitzvah. But now we're going to say, according to this version, Rabbi Yeshua thinks you're exempt. Why? We're going to see in a minute. Even though he actually didn't perform a mitzvah. So why would he be exempt? Because he didn't do, right? He did a brit milah on someone who you can't do brit milah yet for, which means there was no mitzvah done. So why is he going to exempt? We'll see in a minute. Again, they learned it out from idol worship. You can see, right? I could have charted it out differently, but there's certain things that are givens, right? The given is there's a machloket in one case, there's agreement in another case, and the agreement, and they all agree that it's learned out from idol worship. It's just a matter of how. So now they learn from avodat kochavim. Rabbi Eliezer savar ke'avodat kochavim. Ma avodat kochavim amar rachmana lo ta'avid v'chi avid mechayev hachinami lo shna. Now here you have to change it a little from what we said, because according to this version, Rabbi Eliezer actually does think that if you're performing a mitzvah, then you'll be exempt. Here, you're not going to be exempt because you're not actually performing a mitzvah. So hold off for a minute. We'll see Rabbi Yeshua and then we'll understand Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua, hatam lo tarid mitzvah. There, you weren't, okay, here there's a bit of a difference. Before we said you weren't fulfilling a mitzvah. Here you can't say you're fulfilling a mitzvah because no mitzvah was fulfilled because you did a brit milah on a baby that wasn't yet obligated in brit milah. But we use the word tarid the mitzvah. If you remember in Shabbat, in bracha, we had this. Someone, the chatan is patur from Kriyat Shema because he's tarud, he's focused on a mitzvah, okay? So now, even while he's not doing the mitzvah, there's still an issue of tarid the mitzvah. Now, why did this person make a mistake? Because sometimes when you're focusing on something so intensely, you really want to do this mitzvah, he accidentally took the wrong child. But it came from a tirud of a mitzvah. Why was there a tirud of a mitzvah? Because he was obligated in the Sunday, he forgot to do the brit milah that he messed up with. He was obligated on Shabbat. It was his mitzvah that day. So therefore, he was tarried with the mitzvah of giving the brit milah to his right son and accidentally made a mistake. Because you were tarried the mitzvah, Rabbi Yeshua comes and says, you're not obligated. And therefore, hacha tarried mitzvah. So when you mess up in Avodah Zarah, you weren't focusing on doing a mitzvah that made you mess up and accidentally worship idols, right? There's no way. It's interesting they bring such a far-fetched case, right? A case that has absolutely nothing to do with the mitzvah. That's why they're doing it, because there's no way you could be in the middle of a mitzvah and accidentally worship idols. I wonder if you could come up with some creative answer to that. Maybe there is, but the Gemara assumes right now there isn't. But here you were tarried to mitzvah. You were focused on doing a mitzvah and you messed up and did the wrong thing. It's true you didn't perform a mitzvah in the end, but that shouldn't matter, okay? So basically, both agree that if you actually performed the mitzvah, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree in that case, since it was done with the performance of a mitzvah, you're exempt from your sacrifice. According to the second case, there'll be a machloket because you didn't actually perform the mitzvah, you weren't successful in performing it, and therefore, do we count that or do we not count it? Do we say you were trying to do a mitzvah and trying counts, or do we say trying is basically nothing? Okay, that's the machloket. So again, I want to just review. Rav Huna had the version that chayav, that they all agree you're obligated, and that's why he said the first case where they all agree must be the case of, if everyone agrees you're obligated, it must be. He had one who was Shabbat and one who was supposed to be after Shabbat, and that's why they all agree you're obligated, because you didn't actually perform a mitzvah. According to Rav Huna, he had a version that the Mishnah talked about that they all agree that you're exempt. So once he had exempt, he had to switch the two cases and flip it and say it must be they all agree that if you actually perform the mitzvah, you'll actually be exempt. Now we're going to have a tricky, because if we're going to have a third option, well, there's no third option between everyone agrees chayav or everyone agrees patur, but yet there's going to be a third option. So this one's going to be a little more out there. Tani Rabbi Chia, Omer, okay, there was a braita of Rabbi Chia. The Rabbi Chia, the version of the braita that Rabbi Chia had, read like this. Omer haya Rabbi Meir, which is exactly the one that was quoted in the second version. But here, Rabbi Meir says something different. Lo nechleku Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, al mi shayu lo shnei tinokot, echad lamu be'erev Shabbat, ve'echad lamu b'Shabbat. He says they both agree about which case? The case of the Friday baby. Okay, there was a Friday baby and a Shabbat baby, and you accidentally gave the Brit Milah the Friday baby. Umal et shel erev Shabbat b'Shabbat, and you actually, what do we say about this case? You actually performed a mitzvah. Okay, shu chayav. He says the opposite of what we thought. All the while, we kept saying that was the more likely case to exempt. He says the reverse. That's the more likely case that everyone's going to agree you're obligated. And we're going to have to see why this is the exact opposite logic of everything we learned until now. So which case do they have a machloket? One whose brit was Sunday and one whose brit was on Shabbat. And you took the one who was only 7 days old and you gave them a brit milah on Shabbat. In that case, Rabbi Yeshua is going to exempt you. Now that seems crazy because we said, what do you mean? You didn't do any mitzvah. So right, you could say, well, you were involved in a mitzvah. But if you were involved in a mitzvah, all the more so, we should have exempted you in the previous case. Because there, not only were you involved in a mitzvah, but you actually performed a mitzvah because you did the one from Friday who was actually obligated. So we're going to have to explain. The Gemara is going to immediately ask, Hashta Rabbi Yeshua Seifa Deloka Avin Mitzvah Potel. In the Seifa there, Rabbi Yeshua says, even if you didn't even perform a mitzvah, we're going to exempt you. Reisha Deka Avin Mitzvah Mechayev. In the first case then, when he actually performed a mitzvah, you're going to obligate him? That makes no sense. So Amrei Debei Rabbi Yanai, we're going to obviously have to explain, and Rabbi Yanai is going to explain that we didn't have all the facts of the case. Okay, that the case is a little different than we thought. If it's the Friday baby that you're doing on Shabbat, remember there's two babies, one who's supposed to be on Shabbat, one who's supposed to be on Friday. It's not that you just forgot to do your Brit Milah on Friday. What happened? Reisha kigon shekidem umalet shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. What happened? You got confused entirely. On Friday, you did a Brit Milah, but you did the wrong one. You did the Shabbat baby on Friday. Then when Shabbat came, you did the Friday baby. So at this point, what's the difference? Why is everyone going to agree that you're obligated, even Rabbi Yeshua? Because lo nitna Shabbat lidachot. All the while, we've been talking about that the Shabbat baby's in front of him, and he's supposed to do the mitzvah on that Shabbat baby. And theoretically, Shabbat is pushed aside for that Brit Milah. So it's true he messes up and takes the wrong baby, but it was a situation where he was exempt from Shabbat when it came to Brit Milah because he had a baby in front of him that he was supposed to give a Brit Milah to on that day. But if he took the Shabbat baby and did the Brit Milah yesterday on Friday, and in which case we already learned if the baby's already circumcised, you might have to do Hatafat on Brit, but that's not gonna override Shabbat anymore. So therefore, we're going to say, if that's the case, when he's standing on Shabbat with the baby in front of him, lo nitna Shabbat lidachot. There's no pushing off of Shabbat here. So in other words, whatever we learned until now is because he had a baby in front of him that he was supposed to circumcise. But in this case, there was no baby in front of him he was supposed to circumcise because the baby that's in front of him now should have been done yesterday, which means that right now it can't be done on Shabbat, and his date is now moved to Sunday. So therefore, since lo nitna Shabbat lidachot, everybody agrees that you can't perform the Brit Milah. And if you did, you're actually obligated a korban chatat. Seifa nitna Shabbat lidachot. But in the second case, you have two babies in front of you, the Shabbat and the Sunday, and you need to perform a mitzvah on the Shabbat baby. So Shabbat was able to be overridden for you. You messed up and chose the wrong baby. But you could see why Shabbat was nitna lidachot. And then there's a machloka between them, is the fact that what's the problem? You didn't actually perform a mitzvah. So the fact that you were focused what's the word, talud, you were burdened by a mitzvah, you were entrenched in a mitzvah, that caused you to mess up. Do we say because of that you're not obligated a korban, or do we say, no, it doesn't matter, you're obligated anyway? So Amarle Rav Ashi Rav Kahana. What do you mean, lo nitna Shabbat lidachot? Nitna Shabbat lidachot, it's Shabbat is able to be overridden by anybody who has a Brit Milah that day. So theoretically, Shabbat is something that can be overridden by. So why don't we view this as if it was theoretically could have been overridden, and therefore we would maybe exempt him since he did actually perform a mitzvah. But they say, Lahai gavra mi'alo et yad. For you particularly, Shabbat lo nitan lidachot. It's true that theoretically, if there was a baby that was obligated Brit Milah today, Shabbat is theoretically able to be pushed aside today. And maybe there's a baby somewhere in the world who this Shabbat was pushed aside for, but it wasn't pushed aside for that father. That father was not allowed to push aside Shabbat, and that's why everyone will agree that he has to bring a sin offering. Okay, new case. This is a little different, but it's there's a bit of a similar structure here where they're talking about all sorts of scenarios. This, by the way, is exactly the same structure as the Mishnah in Megillah. If you remember, the Mishnah in Megillah starts off, if you've ever learned it, Megillah nikret be, right? And then it starts to say all the possible days one could read the Megillah for Purim. Okay, B'Yud Aleph, B'Yud Bet, B'Yud Gimel, B'Yud Dalet, B'Tef Av. Okay, and it lists all the days that one could possibly read the Megillah. It depends what city you live in, right? If it's a village, it's a city, when did they read the Megillah, etc. And then it says, lo pachot lo yoter. It can't be, or lo makdimim v'lo machmirim, I don't remember the wording, but no earlier than this and no later than this. So it's going to be the same thing about a Brit Milah. We're going to give all the potential days that one could do a Brit Milah. It doesn't mean you can't do a Brit Milah after. Of course you can. But what this means is, these are the days where you could be potentially, that's the day you're obligated. As we know that people are very careful to do the Brit Milah on the earliest day possible. So we're saying this is the range of days that what we call Milah Bizmana. The Milah, if it's done in its right time, is done. Could be 8 days, 9 days, 10 days, 11 days, or 12 days. Lo pachot v'lo yoter. No less. Obviously, you can't do it before that, and no more. Again, you could do more, but that's not going to be the Brit Milah in its proper time. Ha-ketzad, how does it work? Kid darko lishmona. Okay, regular average baby, 8th day. Nolad leben hashmashot mimo litisha. If you're born, let's say Monday night, right in between Monday and Tuesday, where it's right, the sun is set, but it's not fully set, and it's safek yom, safek laila. So if we call that Monday, then theoretically, right, we don't know if it's Monday or Tuesday. So you can't do the Brit Milah on the 8th day on Monday if we count from Monday. Now, it's all tricky because it's all where you count from. But assuming we're going to count from Monday, but we don't know for sure that you could do it on Monday, so we push it off to Tuesday because maybe the baby was only born Tuesday. So therefore, you're going to end up on day number 9 from Monday. If we count from Monday, it'll be day number 9 because we count from Monday, but we can't be sure that it was Monday, so therefore we push it off to Tuesday. That's 9 days. Ben hashmashot shel erev Shabbat mimo l'asara. If it's ben hashmashot on Friday night, then you're not sure is it Friday, is it Shabbat? We talked about this already. You can't do Friday because maybe it's only the 7th day. You can't do Shabbat because it's safek. That's exactly what we call a case of doubt. We don't know. Was the baby born maybe Friday, which means that today is not its day. Therefore, we push it off to Sunday. That's already, if we count from Friday, that becomes day number 10. How do we get to a chadasal? Well, nolad ben hashmashot, nimo l'asara, yom tov la'achar Shabbat, nimo la'chadasal. If it comes out that it was born ben hashmashot, all the next cases are going to be born ben hashmashot on Friday. So you can't do it Friday. You can't do it Shabbat. You can't do it Sunday because Sunday's Yom Tov. So we push it off another day. That gets us up to day number 11. You'll do it on Monday. You can already see where this is going. Shnei Yamim Shel Rosh Hashanah. It comes out on 2 days of Rosh Hashanah where you have an additional day. Then Nimol Shnei Masar. Then it's going to be 12 days, pushed off till Tuesday. Katana Chole, if there's a child who's sick, Ein Mo'alim Oto Ad Shiavri. Then, okay, so now even though we said this is Bizmana, it only goes up to 11, and it's funny because the Mishnah says, Lo Pachav V'lo Yoter, sorry, it goes up to 12. Lo Pachav V'lo Yoter, as if there's no more. All of a sudden they say, well, there could be more. What could be more? If the child's sick, then we obviously wait till the child's better, and in the Gemara, we're going to see how long do we wait. So Amar Shmuel, Chalatz Tochama, that's going to be the first thing we talk about, or the only thing we talk about this Mishnah, actually. If you get a fever, Notznimlo Kol Shiva Lahavroto. We give him 7 days to get better, meaning once he's better, this is like when they say don't send your kid to Gan or to school until 24 hours have passed from a fever, right? There's a certain amount. So they say he gets 7 days, okay? And only after that do you do the Brit Milah. So we buy lahu. Now, if we go back to my example, you'll see why I brought that example. Mi be'ina made late. Do we count 7 days, meaning 7 24-hour periods from the moment the baby got better? So let's say the baby's fever broke at midday. Do we have to wait till midday of the 8th day after? Or do we say no, right? Let's say he got better on Monday at midday. So Monday morning, we can already do the Brit Milah, right? And we know we like to do it in the morning. It's reason Makdim, and that's why many people do Brit Milah in the morning, even though now there seems to be a custom more prevalent in Israel. People do it in the afternoons. But anyway, so they ask, do you need to do it? Is it like we talk about in school? Well, 24 hours, right? That there's a certain time frame. Because does it have to do with that the baby needs to get back to their health, and we need every hour of those 7 days. So Tashma, Detane Luda, they said, let's learn from here. Luda brought the following bright. Yom habra'ato ki yom hivaldo. The day he gets better is like the day of birth. What does that mean? It means that you start counting from that day, meaning you need 7 days. So my love, my yom hivaldo, lo be'ina me'ed late, af yom habra'ato lo be'ina me'ed late. If we're going to compare it fully to the day he was born, well, we know that when a baby's born, we don't check what hour were they born, and then the Brit Milah is done 7 days after 7 full days pass. No, we do it in the morning of the 8th day. There's no such thing as made late. So therefore, if we're going to say the day they got better is like the day they were born and then count 7 days from there, obviously we mean without made late. But then they say, lo, you could explain adif yom habrato yom hivaldo. You could say, no, it's like it in the sense that you need 7 days, but it's, now adif means superior. Here it doesn't exactly mean superior. It means it's almost more strict maybe. So, the ilu yomi valdo lo be'ina me'leit, ilu yom havrato be'ina me'leit. In other words, we could say it's like yomi valdo, but it doesn't mean for all intents and purposes. It's like it that you need 7 days, but it's got one more additional thing, which is that you need to wait the 24 hours. Okay, so it's 24 times 7. So maybe that's the case. We don't know. In the end, it's not clear from here whether you would need 24 hours or whether you'll be able to do it in the morning. And now we're moving on to the tzitzin ha'me'akvim. We talked about if there's shreds of skin still left over. There's some that prevent it from being a valid Brit Milah, and there's some that don't. We want to now figure out which ones. So, elu hein tzitzin ha'me'akvim et hamilah. Basar chofe et rov ha'atara. Okay, this is flesh. If there's still skin there that's covering the crown or the corona of the limb, then if it's covering the majority of it, we're going to see in the Gemara what they mean exactly by the majority, then that's problematic and it has to be removed. If he's a Kohen, he can't eat truma, because you can't eat truma unless you have a Brit Milah. You're still considered uncircumcised if you haven't gotten rid of that skin. This is very interesting. First of all, the whole concept that there's marit ayin by a Brit Milah, right? Obviously, again, some circles, this is very common that people end up, dressing in whether it's the army or whether it's a locker room, and people see. It seems here people were in the bathhouses and they were probably seeing people's naked bodies. So if you're overweight, and basically it looks like you have tzitzin ha'me'akvim ha'milah, even though you don't, because the skin is, I guess, a little fatter there. Really, it's such a fatty area, but somehow it looks like you don't have a Brit Milah. Then you have to fix even the tzitzin that normally wouldn't be problematic. You'd have to fix those. Mal v'lo parat ha'milah ki'ilu lo mal. Again, this is pri'ah, where basically after you cut the foreskin, you peel it back and there's a membrane there that you kind of remove. That's pri'ah. We are not going to say that pri'ah is an integral part of the Brit Milah. Okay, even though normally we think it's just Brit Milah, cutting the foreskin, no, this is significant, and it's as if you didn't do a Brit Milah at all. So the Gemara starts off, Amar Rabbi Avina, they want to explain this. What's this? Basar chofet rov atara. So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Marav, Basar chofet rov govho shel atara. It covers the majority of the height of the tip. Okay, so it's unclear whether it means the majority of the height all around the circumference of it, or just the majority of the height in one area. That's still not clear. V'imaya bal basar. So Amar Shmuel, katana misrabal basar ro'inoto. So now we have to assess. How do we know if a child who's overweight and has basically some extra, right? It looks like extra skin there. The question is, how are we going to figure this out? So Kozman, here's what we do. Ro'inoto, we try to assess. If when the limb hardens, he will look as if he's circumcised, then it's fine. Even if when it's not hardened, it won't look that way, then that's sufficient. Being lav, but if not, sarich limo. Now we're going to have a braita that says the exact same thing, although we're going to see doesn't say the exact same thing. It says it with minor modification, and they're going to learn something from the minor modification. So this was Shmuel, who's an Emora, and now they say, by the way, it also says in a braita. Rashba Gomer, Shimon Gamliel says, Katana Mr. Rabba Basar, if he's overweight, if when the limb hardens and you can't see it, then he doesn't look circumcised, then sarich lemolo, then you need to do it. And if not, ain sarich lemolo. But if not, then you don't need to do it. My benayu, so what's the difference? Now, let's look back. Shmuel worded it he said, if it looks circumcised, he worded it in the positive. If it looks circumcised, then you don't need to do the brit milah. And Rashbag worded it in the negative. If it doesn't look circumcised, then you need to do it. So what would be the relevance? What if it kind of looks like it? Okay, so let's look at the wording. Shmuel said, if it looks mahul, looks circumcised, then you don't need to do a circumcision anymore. You don't need to fix it. That sounds like only if it looks. But what if it kind of looks? Sounds like you would need to do a brit milah again. You need to fix it. But the way Rashbag worded it, if it doesn't look mahul, it doesn't look circumcised, then you need to do it. Which sounds like if it kind of looks circumcised, right? Only if it really doesn't look circumcised. But if it's sort of, then it sounds like it's okay and you don't need to fix it. So that would be the difference between the two versions. Mal velo para. Okay, even though we quote that, that's not really what we're talking about. Right now, we're talking about what the brachot you say at the brit milah are. Okay, this is more like a brachot sugya, right? Where we're getting into what are the blessings that we say. So here goes. Tanu Rabbanan. Hamal omer asher kedesham tzivanu al hamilah. Okay, the one who circumcises, which is often the mohel, it could be the father also, but either the father or the mohel says the bracha, I was commanded to do the brit milah. Okay, whoever does the cutting. Avia ben omer, the father of the son now says, Asher kedesham tzivanu lachniso bebrito shel Avraham Avinu, right, to bring him into the covenant of Avraham. Haumdim omrim, right, this we know from a brit milah, everyone there says, Kashem shenichnas labrit, ken yikanes l'torah l'chupal l'masim tovim, just like he came part of the brit now, we should also be zocheh, to have Torah, to learn, to get married, and to do good deeds. One could question the order of that. There's all these drashot about the order and, you know, why it says it in that order. But we'll leave that aside for now. And then it sounds like anyone can make this blessing, and this is why often they give this as a kibud to someone, right, as an honor to someone else. Says this bracha, shekidesh yidid mi beten, okay, that the friend was sanctified in the womb. Chok b'she, okay, we're gonna have to explain who's this friend. Chok b'she rosam, he put a law in his flesh. V'tzetzav chatam ba'ot brit kodesh, and his descendants he sealed with a sign of the covenant. Al kain, or the holy covenant. Al kain b'sachar zot, and because of this reward, El chai chalkenu tziva la'atzil yedidut she'erenu mishachat l'man brito asher sham b'vsarenu. And then as a result of that covenant, God promised to keep his part, which is to save us from destruction. Okay, because of the brit that's in our flesh. Baruch atah Hashem korei habrit, blessed is God who created this covenant with us. Okay, who's the Yedid? So here's an interesting machloket Rashi Tosfot. Rashi says the Yedid is Yitzchak. Why is he Yedid? Well, Yedid means friend. Friend is usually connected with love. And when Avram goes to do the Akedah, God tells him, if you remember, right, Yitzchak, he says, go, kachet bincha, he doesn't say, right? First he says, bincha, yichidcha, asher ahavta. Your son, your one and only, the one you love, or the special one, right? It's not the one and only, that's the whole issue. That you love, et Yitzchak, right? There's all these drashot on why he said all those things. Anyway, not for today. But he was loved, beloved. That's the Kidesh Yedid Mi Beten. And why Mi Beten? Because they were commanded the mitzvah brit milah before he was born, right? And then it says, right, it says, and you should call him Yitzchak, v'hakimoti et briti ito lebrit olam. Okay, there you have it. The Brit is discussed before Yitzchak was born. He's the one who is Kidesh Mibeten. But Tosfot says, no, the Yedid is actually Avram Avinu. He quotes Rabbeinu Tam, who's one of the Balei Tosfot. Says Shu Avram Avinu, which is called the Yedid, and he quotes a pasuk from Yirmiyahu, where it's a reference to Abraham, and he's called Mayid Yedidi B'Beiti. And then he says, and it actually, in that bracha, has a reference to all three Avot. Asher Kadesh Yedid Mibeten is Avram. Chok B'Sheiro Sam is Yitzchak, because he was the first one who got his Brit Milah. By the way, why would Yitzchak be singled out also according to Rashi? Because he was the first one to get his Brit Milah at 8 days. Right? Avram got it, he was obviously older. And then Yaakov, obviously, what's the reference to Yaakov? Tze'av, in his descendants, right? He's always the one who's known because he has all the children that are part of the tribe of Israel. So there's a reference to all three of the forefathers. Okay, so Rashi says it's just Yitzchak. Okay, next time you hear the bracha, you can think about the two options. Hamalat hagerim. What if you convert you give a brit milah to a convert? What blessing do you say? Omer baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher gesham tzavanu al hamilah. Same bracha. V'mavarech omer asher gesham tzavanu lamul et hagerim ulatif mehem dam brit. Shilmalei dam brit lo nitkaymu shamayim va'aretz. Here it talks about hatafat dam brit. Okay, about spilling blood. The question is, does this mean hatafat dam brit? Because often converts may be already circumcised and all you have to do is take some blood. Maybe it's a reference to that. Other people say, no, that's not. It's even a reference to if he's actually being circumcised, because why is that? So when he gets the Brit Milah, he's older than an average baby, and therefore he sees the blood coming out, and it's telling you, oh, this is the blood, like when you do blood brothers, right? And you take a little blood, right? The blood is what we're doing the Brit about. The third option is, well, instead of Yedid Mibeten, right, where Jews are already sanctified from within the womb, they're already Jewish then, your Jewishness comes from the blood, and that's why it's specifically mentioning the blood. And then, it has a different version. It's all about the blood, right? If it weren't for my Brit, then the world wouldn't be existing. Hamalat Avadim, obviously it leaves out all the part about the ancestors because he doesn't have ancestors. Same thing with an Eved, the Eved Knani, right? The Canaanite slave that needs to undergo Brit Milah. Omer Shek Sham Tzavtzmanu Olam Milah, V'Varech Omer Shek Sham Tzavtzmanu Lamulat Avadim Ulatif Mehem Brit, Shemalei Dam Brit Kuchot Shamayim Va'aretz Lo Nitkaymu, Shene'emar In Lo Briti Yom HaValayla Kuchot Shamayim Va'aretz Lo Samti Baruch Hashem Korei Brit. It's almost word for word the same thing, minor variations, they don't seem to be significant. Hadron Alach Rabbi Lezer Demila ends the parak. New parak we're going to start now is about most of these things are D'Rabbanan halachot. Okay, we're now going to start quickly. Rabbi Lezer Omer tolim et hamishmeret b'yom tov v'notnim litzluya b'yom tov. We're now talking about they would put this sieve, type of sieve on top of, they would kind of put this, it's a wine sieve. It's like made of a soft material, and they would hang it over the sides of a utensil, and it would drip into the utensil, basically the wine. It would keep the dregs inside. And basically what you're doing here, we're going to see, it's like making a tent, okay? Because you're putting this strainer on top of the kli. So you're basically making a tent kind of structure. So he says you can actually create this on Yom Tov. There's no problem, even though it's a tolada boneh, basically, of building. V'notnim litzluya b'Shabbat. And on Shabbat, now Yom Tov, because of Ochel Nefesh, we allow it. Shabbat, you can't do that, but if it's already hanging, you can pour the wine in. Why can you pour the wine in, even though it's borer, separating? But they say it's not typical. It's not the typical way we do borer. The Chachamim omrim ein tolim et hamishmer b'Yom Tov. The rabbis are more stringent. They say you can't do this. You can't create this on Yom Tov, even on Yom Tov. Ve'ein notnim litzluya b'Shabbat. And on Shabbat, you can't pour the wine in. On Yom Tov, you can pour the wine in, but you can't make the structure. On Shabbat, you can't even pour the wine in. Aval notnim litzluya b'Yom Tov. But you can pour the wine in on Yom Tov. So now the Gemara says, Hashta Rabbi Eliezer, Osufu Olarai Lomos Finan. If he holds you can't add to an already existing temporary tent, which we already learned, we'll see where in a minute. So he's going to allow on Yom, if he won't allow adding to it its existing tent that's temporary, how can he possibly allow you to build a temporary tent? So, where do we know this? Ditnan kaka halon. Remember this kaka halon, the hole in the wall, or some people said a skylight. You want to stick back in the piece that closes it up. You can only do it if it's hanging, right? Not on the ground, and it's attached. The im, right, it's attached to the wall nearby. The im lav ain't pokikimbo. Otherwise, you can't do it. The chachamim omrim ben kakol ben kak pokikimbo. So why is he so machmir here? When so machmir there and mechel bayas, lenient bayas. The amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar B'Yochanan. And about that machloket, we already explained it. Hakol modim she'en osim ol haray b'tchila b'yom tov. Everyone agrees on Yom Tov you can't make a temporary tent. Bein sarich lomar b'Shabbat, and obviously not on Shabbat. Lo nechleku ela lahosif. Their machloket here about the pkak hachalon is about adding to something that's already there, because most of the wall is there. You're just adding to it. Shabbat le'ezer omer ein mosifim b'Yom Tov. Bein sarich lomar b'Shabbat. He holds you can't do this because you're not allowed to add. The chachamim omrim mosifim b'Shabbat bein sarich lomar b'Yom Tov. The rabbi said you can do it on Shabbat and you can even do it on Yom Tov. This is what we said about a stroller. You can open it up because it already has a tefach of thickness that's open to begin with, or possibly an awning. So how do we explain this? Well, Rabbi Eliezer savar la Rabbi Yehuda D'Tanya. Ein bein Yom Tov l'Shabbat ela ochal nefesh bilvad. According to the Tanakama, the only difference is ochal nefesh between Yom Tov and Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda matir ach machshirei ochal nefesh. Rabbi Yehuda allows even preparatory work for ochal nefesh. So this would be exactly that. This, by the way, matches Rabbi Eliezer in the previous parak. About machshirei milah, he's lenient about, also machshirei ochal nefesh. Once something's allowed, we allow more. Okay, so if we're allowed to do things for food, we can even do preparatory work for food. So then they say, but wait, Rabbi Yehuda only said that if you can't do it before Yom Tov, meaning it won't be good for the food, any kind of preparatory work. But who's to say that he allows things that could be done from before Shabbat, before Yom Tov? So again, how could Rabbi Eliezer, if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, how could he allow building this? You could build this the day before. It obviously has no effect on your wine. You could put your wine in on Yom Tov, but he's saying you can even build it on Yom Tov. So what do they answer? Rabbi Eliezer, Adif Amid Rabbi Yehuda. He goes so far even as to say, which matches exactly what he said by Brit Milah, the knife you could have prepared from the day before. But even if you didn't, we allow you to do it. Likewise here, anything for Ochal Nefesh purposes is allowed, even if it requires building something that you could have built from before, we allow you to do it. Okay, it seems also, though, only maybe because this is Derabanan, and we'll get more into this tomorrow when we see the rabbi's opinion. Okay, because again, this is only Mosif to Ol Harai, which is already not a Doraita halacha, because temporary oils anyway are only Derabanan. Okay, but we'll get to that tomorrow when we talk about the rabbi's opinion. That's it for today. Have a good day.